Hello everyone. In this lecture I am going to explain line by line the famous poem London, 1802, written by William Wordsworth. But before I explain this poem, if you are new to my channel, then please like and subscribe the channel. Before I start it line by line, let me tell you the main points of this poem, then you will understand it. Actually, this poem is an appeal to John Milton, the great 17th century English poet, asking him to return and help restore England's lost moral and cultural greatness. Wordsworth sees England as being in decline and believes that Milton's virtues, his purity, strength, and wisdom, are needed to revive the nation. Milton. Thou shouldst be living at this hour. In this first line, the poet William Wordsworth directly addresses John Milton. As you know, John Milton is a great English poet of the 17th century. He expresses his wish that Milton were alive in 1802, the time when Wordsworth is writing. Here the phrase, "thou shouldst be living," means, you should be alive. The poet strongly feels that Milton's presence is needed in the current time. Here, this hour refers to the early 19th century, a period in which Wordsworth believes England has become morally and spiritually weak. He sees the nation as corrupt, selfish, and lacking true greatness. By calling out to Milton, Wordsworth is showing his deep respect for the poet and his belief that Milton's wisdom and virtue could help restore England's lost glory. England hath need of thee, she is a fund of stagnant waters. In this line, Wordsworth continues his plea for John Milton to return, emphasizing that England desperately needs him. The phrase, "England hath need of thee," means, England needs you. The poet feels that the country is in decline, morally, politically, and spiritually, and only a great leader like Milton could bring back its lost greatness. The phrase, "she is a fund of stagnant waters," is a powerful metaphor. A fund is a swampy, marshy area filled with standing water that does not flow. Stagnant waters symbolize something that is motionless, lifeless, and decaying. This means that England is no longer moving forward or flourishing. Instead, it has become stagnant, corrupt, and lifeless. Wordsworth feels that moral decay, selfishness, and greed have taken over the country. Altar, sword, and pen. In this line, Wordsworth uses altar, sword, and pen as symbols of England's lost virtues. The altar represents religion and morality, the sword stands for military strength and justice, and the pen symbolizes literature, wisdom, and intellectual life. The poet believes that all these pillars of society have declined, and England has lost its former greatness. He longs for the return of John Milton, whose strong moral character and wisdom could help restore these values. Fireside, the heroic wealth of Hall and Bower. In this line, Wordsworth continues listing the lost virtues of England. Fireside represents the warmth, unity, and moral strength of home and family life. The heroic wealth of Hall and Bower refers to the noble and honorable traditions of England's past, where grand halls and rural homes were once filled with courage, integrity, and cultural richness. However, the poet laments that these qualities have been lost, and England no longer possesses the strength and virtue it once had. In this line, the word hall represents the great homes of the aristocracy, while bower refers to the cottages of common people. And the heroic wealth does not mean money, but rather the courage, honor, and moral strength that once existed in both noble and ordinary households. The poet believes these virtues have been lost in modern England. And then says, have forfeited their ancient English dower of inward happiness. In this line, Wordsworth is saying that England has lost the precious gift that it once had. Here in this line the word forfeited means lost of something, and the word dower means a precious gift. The phrase ancient English dower refers to the noble values and moral virtues that once made England great. These qualities brought a sense of inward happiness. However, the poet believes that in his time, England has abandoned these qualities. And then says, "We are selfish men." This is a direct and harsh criticism of the people of England. Wordsworth believes that people have become greedy, self-centered, and morally weak. Instead of working for the good of the country, they only think about themselves. Simply, you can say that this is the main reason why England is in decline. The country is no longer filled with brave and noble people, instead, it is full of selfish and corrupt individuals. Oh! Raise us up, return to us again. Here again Wordsworth makes an emotional plea for Milton to return. The phrase, "raise us up," means, lift us out of our current low state. Wordsworth is asking Milton to inspire and lead the people back to a better way of life. The phrase, "return to us again," shows longing and desperation. In simple words you can say that he feels that only a strong, wise, and moral leader like Milton can bring England back to its former greatness. And give us manners, virtue, freedom, power. In this line, Wordsworth asks Milton to return and restore the lost values of England. He believes that the people have become selfish and corrupt, lacking manners, which refers to proper behavior, freedom, and power. As you know that manners refers to proper behavior, virtue refers to more goodness, freedom refers to both political and intellectual liberty, and power refers to strength of character and leadership. The poet longs for a revival of these qualities so that England can regain its former greatness. Simply, it means that all these qualities are gone, and Wordsworth wants Milton to come and revive these qualities in his nation. And then says, "Thy soul was like a star, and dwelt apart." Now in this line, Wordsworth compares Milton's soul to a star, which suggests that Milton was pure, brilliant, and distant from the corruption of the world. The phrase, "dwelt apart," means that Milton lived in a way that was separate from ordinary people, he was above worldly concerns, guided by higher principles. Just as a star shines alone in the vast sky, untouched by darkness, Milton's soul remained pure and untainted by the selfishness of society. "Thou hadst a voice whose sound was like the sea." Here, the poet praises Milton's powerful voice. He is not talking about Milton's literal voice, but rather his writing and ideas. The sea is vast, deep, and unstoppable. By comparing Milton's voice to the sea, Wordsworth suggests that Milton's words were strong, powerful, and full of wisdom. His ideas were majestic, eternal, and impossible to ignore. Simply, you can say that here in this line he says that Milton had a voice which was deep and full of wisdom. That's why he is calling Milton to come and reform the nation and country. And then says, "pure as the naked heavens, majestic, free." Wordsworth continues to describe Milton's greatness. He says Milton was pure like the naked heavens, meaning the clear sky. The words, majestic, free, suggest that Milton was noble and independent. He was not influenced by greed, power, or corruption. He lived according to his own strong morals and principles. In other words, you can say that he was a great person and pure and clear like an open and clear sky, and he was free from vices like corruption and greed. And then says, "So didst thou travel on life's common way, in cheerful godliness." In these lines, Wordsworth describes how Milton lived his life with a rare combination of simplicity and spiritual greatness. The phrase, "so didst thou travel on life's common way," means that Milton lived like an ordinary person. Despite his extraordinary qualities, he did not separate himself from the world or live in isolation. He experienced life just as others did. The phrase, "in cheerful godliness," means that Milton lived a life full of faith in God, but his faith was not harsh or strict, it was joyful and sincere. He followed moral and religious principles with a sense of happiness and positivity, not out of fear or obligation. Actually, he admires this balance in Milton's character, as he was both deeply spiritual and genuinely cheerful in his approach to life. "And yet thy heart the lowliest duties on herself did lay." It means that despite Milton's greatness, wisdom, and high moral standards, he was also humble and willing to take on even the simplest and most ordinary responsibilities. Here, the word "lowliest" refers to humble or unimportant tasks, and "duties" means responsibilities. The phrase suggests that Milton was not proud or arrogant. He did not think of himself as too important for small tasks. Instead, he was willing to serve others and fulfill even the most modest duties with dedication. Wordsworth admires this quality in Milton, as it shows both his humility and his deep sense of responsibility toward the world. I hope you have enjoyed this lecture, but please don't forget like and subscription to my channel. Thank you.